giving them some other form of monumentality, then is there less violence in one and more in the other?
I think there's...
Do we differentiate?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think there's balance in both, except that one violence allow a kind of transmutation, and therefore you don't experience it as violence in the case of Anish Kapoor, and the other lack this transmutation. See, I find this altogether a kind of unfortunate thing that happened. Not because he has no talent or originality, but because he's humanly lacking in something and seems to...
Well, he's a great sculptor, he's a greater sculptor than Anish Kapoor. So,
you
to my
say
mind,
that. You say that.
So what I'm saying is that I'm using the aesthetic paradigm that you set up, to which I totally subscribe. From that viewpoint, I am making this judgment about the object is the poetics. Then I'm saying I like the poetics that Sarah projects, of that he has developed, is something significant. Now the question was precisely when Sarah is put in New York City and the people find it extremely objectionable, it gets into their way, they actually they force the civic authorities to remove that wall. That negotiation, I would still stand on the side of Sarah and said that he made an important contribution to even the obstruction was a contribution. But I'm speaking entirely from an aesthetic paradigm. I'm not
But what's wrong with aesthetic paradigm? And do we have any other paradigm?
That is also an orthodoxy. That's what I'm saying. You are questioning
But
political
orthodoxy has to do
orthodoxy.
with the rightness of opinion, not with an opinion as such. No, orthodoxy, rightness of opinion. So the right opinion is not the issue here, you see. I mean, you may call it orthodoxy. You may say this is the right opinion. You may call it orthodoxy, by which you mean the right opinion. And you may say this is the right opinion. But what I thought that this is not merely the right opinion, that it is a way of seeing the kind of world in which we live, and therefore it will not be the issue whether it's the right opinion or not. I do think that Sarah had kind of moments like this, certainly, and I appreciate these moments. But I think I'm very much against the idea of looking at somebody's work globally, you know, Richard Serra. No, I would discuss with you one by one, and I would say that certain works, I think, have this moment, and certain works, like the monument in the streets, was not of that character because it was a repetition, because it was a kind of remake of himself, and therefore it could not, it doesn't even merit. I mean, I'm on your side in describing the conflict with the public, but I think as far as the work of art is concerned, I think that work was not part of the, how would I say, the authentic Richard Serra. I thought that is a part of Serra who acts sometimes like a producer, you know, like a factory, making these things that are more or less reproduction of himself, you know, and they don't have the same value as a work of that category. So I think that there is this. I think that one has to, you know, to be more particular in the case of discussing works like this. You know, I agree with the comparison between Anish Kapoor piece in Chicago, but then the question is which Serra you compare. I think it's in that case it made sense, certain symmetry with Serra that was rejected. But I think that Serra should not be measured by the work that was rejected, but should be looked at by other works. I think the work that was rejected, in my view, was not one of those works that made Serra what he became. I think that...
So I can give a little anecdote. I just happened to be in New York, and it was Richard Serra's big show soon after 9/11,
yes.
And through a common friend, he was there, and he told us, Peter was also there, Ram Rahman, Charles Correa, that the people came to see his work as the first major show where there was such a loss of faith and there was so much fear that his sculpture was so monumental within that convergence that it brought back hope. These are Richard Serra's own words, that they felt that yes, I mean, this scale of work could bring back the sense of coming together. And he was very proud to say these statements. So that here he felt that he gifted the city of New York as the first, huge, almost museum level show in a private gallery, that there's still hope and we can continue.
Yeah, that's very, very moving. I didn't know that. I mean, I didn't know that he started.
I think you're being sarcastic.
I think there was a
it is double-edged. I was
You're being directly sarcastic. You're referring to ego. You're referring to self-interest. You're referring to the fact that he thinks he's the greatest guy.
Greatest gift to us.
Yeah, and if you refer to the question of repetition, you are repeating and mass producing because you have to bring in the whole question of ego. If you are going to withdraw from the process of repetition, if you are going to find another method to search for this moment that she's talking about that we all identify with, then we have to discuss this whole question of relationship with yourself in terms of ego, in terms of how you perceive yourself consistently over a period of time. So I find it difficult, and you have to bring in. You can keep on going round and round, but is there an ego here in the street tomorrow? We have to relate it to this workshop also in some sense. And it's very interesting because they cannot understand what is the ego here.
Just ask another question also about the notion of even agency in the act of creation, and the artistic act, or this object that is being created through a certain method. I think in the case of the workshop, there is really one object or art of purpose to this whole process. It's really a sense of it's never going to be about individual agency, individual expression, and the workshop is not the context which will maybe provide some sense of openness that allows individual artists to express themselves in their own way. The whole purpose and the whole act of creation, and the most difficult thing that we're trying to do is to have a collective agency, and this collective agency is something which requires a connecting with people who are in this neighborhood and people who are us coming. And that is the act. That's the art. If anything, if there's some sense of that. And then what comes through that, maybe something very innovative, maybe something new, because if there is this connection happening, and we have to be very creative about the way we make this connection happen. If this is happening, then there'll be an amazing exchange of knowledge, of potential, and so this is the opening, to new things. So, for example, this is where we can come together for a role project, and maybe this is the absurdity of the project also. But this is also where we throw the dice and where we try to see also what. If it is possible at all, so that's an experiment, and everybody who's part of it is doing that, and that's why also the output of this workshop is something which is not the same output. It's a demonstration of a process, because we'll be doing things in different parts of Kilki, and one of the things that we require is that all of the presentations or the acts that will be performed at that time will be something which will also be done with people of Kilki. So that's its attempt. And when this is realized, then there is maybe scope for innovation, for something truly new to emerge.
I think Rahul's formulations are very convincing in that what you're saying is that to the civic intervention is given some sort of a lower level moral, what shall we say, moral profile, whereas political rhetoric has a higher profile. And I think that that somewhere what you're suggesting is that one has the daring, the daring to adopt precisely the kind of